watching Jakarta Globe News Channel. This is The Perspective. I'm Florence Armein, and we are talking to the founder of Hollaback Jakarta, Angie. Angie, one curiosity though, I know this is an online movement to invite, to not only create that awareness, invite people to come up and talk about it so that a solution can be found and street harassment.
Yes.
Has there been though there has been stories that come into your website,
yes.
There has been stories shared, we got your back,
yes.
You know. Let's take that story for instance, the video that was shared by
yes.
the woman who was harassed in the train, and 8 other people came out
yes.
with the same story and
yes.
relating to that. Has there been any follow-up to this? Has there been any sort of legal process that's taken place? Where do you take these kinds of discoveries for moving forward and trying to provide some kind of security perhaps or closure yes. for people who actually came up to Hollaback and say, yes, you know what, I have come to the right movement
yes.
because they're doing something about it, I'm doing something about it.
Yes, so we are a story sharing platform. Why stories? Because telling your story can raise awareness. It also helps to make the incident less traumatic. Research shows that by sharing your story, not keeping it to yourself, it can actually lessen the trauma of the experience. And in that also it helps other people. So as far as where do we take it further, for us, that's it. Okay. We've got the information also, we've got it mapped out. If you go to the front of the website or if you open the app, you can see pink dots and green dots. Pink dots are from stories from people who have experienced harassment, and the green dots are from people who have witnessed it and tried to do something about it. Okay. So with that, we do, it is just to put it out there. And then with this, anybody can access these stories, so it can be used for research. It can be seen by policymakers to look, okay, this is what it looks like here. This is where it's happening. What can we do about it? But and we can, if we're invited to meetings to talk things like that, we can give our perspective about it. But in terms of legal action, that is beyond our realm. But we will. We have, with our community mapping, we have been in touch with a lot of amazing organizations that have opened our eyes to many resources. So with the story form, people do submit their email. So if it is something that is particularly alarming, or we feel that maybe this person would like to take further action somehow, we can pass along to them the resources that we have. Anything from maybe this should be reported officially somehow. These are the contacts that we have. Maybe if you want further counseling, you can, for example, we'll give them the email address of Yayasan Puli's online counseling email. That's how we follow up.
So this is why you work alongside with other organizations to make sure that you're part of the ecosystem. It might not end with Hollaback, but it's certainly being recognized as something that has to be addressed.
Yeah, and I mean, we are very new on the scene. There are incredible organizations who have been out there working for decades, right? Even, and who do really important work too. So we are not here to try to do things by ourselves, or we like to consider ourselves as part of a bigger movement in Jakarta to make sure that everybody has the same access and right as they should.
Right. All right. Jakarta.ihollaback.org. Here is one example: a motorbike creep, type, groping, verbal. I was riding my bicycle to work one morning. Oh, that might have been. That is actually on Angie's pin. So take a look at the site, ladies and gentlemen, and you can learn more about how Hollaback Jakarta works and how you can participate. And this is also a good education platform on how to end street harassment. So tell me about the organizations you've worked with so far, Angie.
So far, we have done a couple of events with Yayasan Lentera Sintas Indonesia, and their work is largely about fighting sexual violence in Indonesia and gender-based violence. So we definitely fall under that spectrum, right? Public harassment, sexual harassment, it exists on a spectrum. So we've worked with them. We've done a couple of different chalk walks, so where we go to Car Free Day, bring chalk and invite people to write down how they're feeling or anything about street harassment. So we've done that with Lanthera a couple of times. The most previous one, April 2 until 8, was International Anti-Street Harassment Week, and that's organized internationally by a group called StopStreetHarassment.org. And this year they were able to coordinate and get 45 countries, including Indonesia, to do something for it, like a chalk walk, a talk, anything really. And so for that we partnered with Lanthera, another group who they're university students. They're relatively new also. They're called Lumir Project, and they focus on catcalls. And also a group called Bersama Project that uses art and music to try to address issues such as these. Coming up, we'll be doing a talk show with, again, Lanthera, with Perempuan and another group called Save Janda, which works to fight against stigma that often affects divorcees. So we are looking for more and more people to work with, but we are very happy to have been able to come across the connections that we have already with groups like Lanthera.
You're doing a lot of work on your own, and you've been very active. And I see that in part is also because you are in an ecosystem where people are very passionate about the issue. But my question would be, how do you feel the media has been addressing this issue? How responsive have they been into these kinds of social movements, online, may that be online, offline, in addressing or in focusing sexual violence and harassment?
You know, I think that especially recently, over the past 6 months or so, the media has been a lot more responsive about this issue. But that's, again, in response to people talking about it on social media. So I mentioned earlier the train story that had gone viral. A couple weeks beforehand, there had been a story on the bus. A university student had experienced physical harassment, and she had tried to report it, and it just took off like wildfire from there, the story. If you do a search about street harassment in Jakarta now, you will find a lot of articles. When I first started researching back last year, trying to find stories specifically about street harassment, specifically in Jakarta, it was hard to come by articles outside of like Magdalene magazine. So now Magdalene is still championing the issue, but so are other organizations. But the other outlets seem to be in response to those viral stories. So this is why it's important that we talk about it, because by talking about it, we'll hopefully be able to direct a brighter light on it to bring it out of the darkness.
Well, because I see that because it's social and online movement. There's a lot of social, there's a lot of support, and there's a lot of a buzz around on it on social media and online. But of course, the conventional or the traditional media would rather talk about politics and what is happening around us, rather what is currently happening, rather than addressing this social issue. Would that be something that yourself and also other movements would like to see media to take an active role in trying to help?
Of course, as many allies as we can. So, for example, one of our other messages that we're trying to get out there is about bystander intervention. So, not putting it on the person experiencing the harassment themselves to fight against it, because again, they might feel very unsafe about what's happening, and knowing that somebody around them has seen what has happened and didn't do anything to try to help, it makes it even more traumatic, actually. So we've been trying to get out there. Hollaback, along with an organization called Green Dot in the US, have come up with 5 Ds of bystander intervention. So we are trying to get that out there to as many people as possible. And
what is this?
The 5 Ds are, the first one is direct. So if you see harassment happening, be it sexual or racist or homophobic, any kind of harassment, the first one is direct. So that would be to say something directly to the perpetrator, short, firm, and not to engage in conversation, but just to say, hey, that's not okay, stop, it's harassment, and that's it. So direct. The second one is to distract, and so that would be to try to engage with the target or the victim of harassment to distract the perpetrator. So like, hey, do you have the time? Or pretending to know them, like, oh, long time no see, like, hey, and then you're an ally
Take
for
them
that
away
person.
from that,
Yes.
that very negative environment.
Yeah, the third one is to document it, like we saw with the train story. She got the guy's picture, and in documenting it, also kind of taking it to the target or the victim after to say, hey, I got this. I saw what happened. It really sucked. I got this. Do you want me to give it to you? What would you like me to do with it? The next one would be to delegate, and that's to delegate the intervention kind of to someone else, basically. But that would be finding a person of authority. So if it's on the bus, maybe the door guard. If it's a train officer, a police officer, or even another bystander. So bringing somebody else in, telling them this is going on. Can you help me figure out how to stop it? And then the last one, and this is the easiest one to do, in my opinion, is delay. And that's in keeping in mind that harassment often happens in passing. Like in my situation, it was like like didn't even have time to react yet. Is to approach the target or the victim after and say, hey, I saw what happened. That was horrible. Are you okay? Do you need anything? And just talking to them to let them know like that you're there for them. But in doing any of these things, you should definitely assess the situation first. Personal safety is definitely a priority, and to figure out if you do realize what's going on and you're not acting, what is keeping you from acting, or who is keeping you from acting. But then remembering those 5 Ds, choosing one of them to do something. And then it's not on the list of Ds, but sharing the story on the site after as a bystander so that we can see more of those green dots popping up on our maps of people trying to help, and not just pink dots of people who have experienced harassment.
And first and foremost, for the bystander to understand what it is, catcalling, that is not okay, what is a constitute of street harassment, including catcalling, to understand that it's not correct. We'll talk more about Hollaback Jakarta when we return.